Hello and welcome to today's episode of Stand Up. Joining me today from the very interesting, important, and influential Michigan-based organization Voters Not Politicians, the brilliant Christy McGillivray joins me for the first time. Really interesting conversation, super smart human being, and I learned a lot from talking to her. A great conversation. We were live yesterday, but if you want to skip to it right now, it begins at 29 minutes. But I've got your headlines and clips and just want to give you a heads up that I'm going to take a couple days off over the next week or so. I'm going to be posting irregularly in terms of my schedule and the format of the show. And I won't be able to host the Hangout tonight either, but I should be back next week. With that, tomorrow I will have the great Liz Winstead joining me on the program, and Tim Wise will be my Monday guest. I talked with both of them as well today. If you want to watch those live on YouTube and or Substack, they should be up and available there. But taking a few days off, and I am very, very thankful and grateful for you supporting me and allowing me to do that. So really appreciate it. And right now I want to get to your headlines and clips. That's what I do here and each and every day. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic is the place to support my work. The show is free, but it ain't cheap, and I could really use your paid subscription. Sign up for a free subscription on Substack as well, or you can get a paid one over there in addition or otherwise. And that is all I have to say here at the top. Let's get to the headlines from yesterday, shall we? Great clip show coming up as well. You don't want to miss that, but let's start with the war in Iran, a ceasefire in which the firing hasn't ceased. The U.S. has begun striking Iran again at General Fatton's direction. CENTCOM announced in a post on X, the United States holding Iran accountable for recent unjustified aggression against commercial shipping and civilian crews freely navigating a vital international waterway, was what they said in their announcement. And yesterday at the NATO summit, our dear leader said, yeah, I think the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, I think it's over. Yeah, they're crazy. I'll bring you that clip. I hate to play him, but that one's brief, and he is just absolutely nuts, as you know. Well, a federal judge yesterday ordered that the writer E. Jean Carroll be paid by that nutso, absolutely fucking bizarre lunatic of a human being who's the worst person in the world. Nope, he's got to pay her $5 million plus interest and damages stemming from a judgment in one of her two civil cases. And he had made a last-ditch effort late Tuesday to stop Carroll from collecting the money, but she's getting it. That's awesome. Very happy to hear it. And speaking of a case that shouldn't have been appealed, a federal appeals court on Wednesday rejected his bid to restore his name to the Kennedy Center. Yes, 2 losses, 2 L's. Check for Amanda Nelson's L's of the week. I'm sure they're included. So he challenged that lower court's order that stripped his name from the Washington Performing Arts Landmark in June. But a 3-judge panel said that he and the Kennedy Center's board, in their motion to stay the lower court's order, failed to show that they would be irreparably injured without his name being restored. Love it. You love to see it. And yet more good news. Former Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan was spared from prison Wednesday for ushering a Mexican defendant through her jury room door as U.S. Immigration and Customs ICE agents sought to arrest him in a courthouse hallway. U.S. District Judge fined her $5,000, describing the situation as where an otherwise good person, upset by immigration policies in this country, made a bad decision in the moment. But no jail time for that judge, and I think that's good. So 3 pieces of good news or judgments. And while the Justice Department has sent letters to top election officials nationwide, threatening them with a criminal prosecution if non-citizens cast ballots that are counted in elections, according to one of the letters that has been reviewed by a number of media outlets. An Afghan national who fought alongside U.S. forces died from an allergic reaction while in the custody of ICE 1 day after he was detained for deportation proceedings. His death certificate shows. His name was Mohammed Nazir Pakatiawal, and may his memory be a blessing. What a travesty this country has become. The top air pollution regulator at the EPA told employees yesterday that he's leaving the administration, according to a recording of his remarks obtained by the New York Times, and his resignation is notable. He's stepping down as the head of the EPA's air office after overseeing rollbacks of a range of pollution limits that prevented pollution. Yeah. Of course, he's a former registered lobbyist for the oil and chemical industries. Like, he's the picture of pollution. His name is Aaron Szabo, and reading the story about him is real outraging. So don't do it, or do it. to fuel the fight against these losers. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear is requesting a health update from the Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, who's not appeared in public since entering the hospital weeks ago for undisclosed reasons. Governor Beshear sent a letter to McConnell's office expressing concern over his ability to fulfill his duties. And Steve Bannon over at Mad Owl Blog says that even by 2026 standards, this is a weird story, a dispute among cabinet officials over who could ride in fighter jets flying over Washington on the 4th of July escalated to Trump, who gave the go-ahead to acting Attorney General Todd Blanche despite prior objections from the Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. The backstage air show, he says, drama reflected how much the personalities of Trump and his top officials drove the official festivities to mark the nation's 250th birthday. What a bunch of losers. Fucking losers. Oh, I don't know how else to say it. All right. Well, those are just a few of the headlines from yesterday. Tell me what I've missed. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com anytime, as well as the clips. Here are your clips. I got some really good ones today. I got a long one from Jon Stewart's The Weekly Show, it's called. That's the name of the podcast. And he had Brian Driscoll, former head FBI agent, and Jack Smith on his show, and it's a fascinating conversation. But here is a clip. I think it's a few minutes long, but it's absolutely worth it. Let's listen.
Was there ever a partisan tilt to how you were asked to operate?
Never.
Even in the first Trump administration?
Even in the first Trump administration. Look, John, I was working in Nashville as the first assistant, right? It's before Trump's elected. Trump gets elected. I become the acting U.S. attorney. The office did not change. We still did our job. And just to go back to a point you raised earlier, you know, if a new administration comes in and they want to change policy, they want to say, we want to focus on immigration enforcement. We want to focus less on civil rights. We want to do environment. We don't want to do less of corruption. They get to do that. That is why elections happen. And I tell young people all the time, if you think you want to be a prosecutor, but you only want to work for certain sorts of administrations in certain cases, career prosecutor is the wrong profession for you. Shouldn't do it. But at the same time, if you want to do those things, you want to change the policy, that's fine, but you have to follow the law and you have to follow doing things the right way. You don't investigate the victims of police shootings, right? You don't try to smear them and call them domestic terrorists to set a narrative. That is so far removed from anything I've experienced, both as a line prosecutor or in leadership positions. It's just never been even anything close to that.
Oh, so what are we to make then of the people who are still there and they are told, find out what Letitia James' mortgage situation is like? I mean, right now, they have weaponized it. It's very clear, and they've said it explicitly. They are going to go after those that they felt weaponized the DOJ against Trump. So if you're working there now, how do you respond to that? Should everybody quit? I mean, clearly there's probably partisans there, but how do they deal with that? Brian, I'll ask you that.
It's pretty black and white. If you receive a legal order or if it's in furtherance of a properly, legally predicated investigation, then that's the job. If you're asked to cross that line into what is unethical, immoral, and illegal, then you have a decision to make. And that's what I've faced as well.
But there are judgments associated with this. There are judgments in terms of when to bring a case. You know, there is discretion. And I think you saw it when they brought in Lindsay Halligan. There was cases that career prosecutors felt had not risen to the level of being charges being brought.
And that's the decision point. And that is not unilaterally decided like by the FBI. The FBI doesn't make prosecutorial decisions. We work hand in hand with the DOJ. And then if it makes it to court, and then it needs to go through the process.
Jack, how do you think people should handle that?
Yeah, sure. And this is something I talk to young people who are thinking of being prosecutors or people who are still in the department. I talk to them about it all the time. And my view is very similar to Brian's. If you can still do your job, DOJ, even today, does a lot of good things, a lot of important things, protecting communities around our country, protecting the safety of Americans, protecting our national security. And a lot of people can do their job. Now, it could be in this administration, you're going to get asked to do something that is just wrong, just illegal, just corrupt. And if that happens, your number's up. And it's interesting. the people who I've talked to who are experienced serious prosecutors, they know the difference between those things. It's judgment, but it's not hard. You can look at, Letitia James and look at her mortgage fraud situation, and you can then get the facts together. But then ultimately you say, hey, as I understand the prosecutors in Virginia did, this is not a case anyone would ever bring. And then you might get fired for it, for telling the truth about how a case should be handled. And I think my view is that prosecutors and agents too should try to stay and do the right thing. And this isn't a matter, I've heard people say this isn't a matter of throwing sand in the gears. Just do your job. Do what you've done all along. And doing that makes it harder for them to weaponize the department. Just doing your job. The rule of law, it doesn't work. The system doesn't hold if the people who enforce the law don't have integrity and character. But if they do, it's much harder to target people. That's why you see a lot of these prosecutions or the attempts to indict senators and congressmen for reciting the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They fall apart because A, real prosecutors won't do it. And therefore the people they get to do it are incompetent. They don't actually know how to prosecute a case.
The real estate lawyers, right?
Yeah, they don't have any experience.
I think those guys are great Americans. I'm going to go ahead and say it. All three of them, Jon Stewart included. There you go. I can't wait to listen to that whole interview. I couldn't get those words out. It was really hard. I love this from Lawrence O'Donnell. This is 3.5 minutes from his show on Tuesday night. And he says a lot of what wasn't said about Graham Plattner and his wealth, and what looked to be one of the first red flags that he and others noticed. I don't think I did.
Your news media was of a humble, roughly educated oyster farmer in Maine. The image created by him and by the eager news media was of a humble, roughly educated oyster farmer in Maine who decided he was just mad as hell and couldn't take it anymore, and he was going to step up and save Maine from Donald Trump and Susan Collins, and he could do it because he knew the struggles, but he didn't. He's never known those struggles. His most obvious credibility problem to me from the start was saying, quote, I'm a working class guy that lives a working class life. He also said, I've never been close to money and power. And that was a lie. He's a graduate of a private high school, and his father is a rich lawyer, rich enough to give the maximum contribution to a Democratic Senator, Ruben Gallego, who endorsed Graham Plattner, and who has now retracted that endorsement like every other senator who endorsed Graham Plattner. Plattner's grandfather was Warren Plattner, who the New York Times describes as a celebrated architect who designed the dining room of Windows on the World, the storied restaurant atop the World Trade Center, and offices for the Ford Foundation building. Before Mr. Plattner was born, his grandfather also designed an expansive family estate in Connecticut that he said was inspired by a chateau in the Loire Valley of France. Warren Plattner is best known for a namesake line of furniture, including mid-century modern easy chairs that today are priced starting at $15,000. And the oyster farmer thing is true, but it's not exactly the struggling version of oyster farmer. His mother owns a restaurant and is the biggest customer for his oysters. And here's what Graham Plattner knows about the affordability of housing. The New York Times reports property and tax records show he bought the home for $205,000 and received a $200,000 mortgage loan from his father. So his father bought him a house and his mother buys his oysters. The image of honest oyster farmers somehow just miraculously held. Then came the women accusing him of being abusive, and they were ignored by the Plattner supporters and endorsers because Graham Plattner denied the accusations. Then Monday, a woman offered detail of an encounter with Graham Plattner that she said was non-consensual. And here's the big, big problem with that. That same woman had already been an unnamed source in other reporting about Graham Plattner's abusive conduct with women. And she thought what she had said as an unnamed source was clear enough about his aggression with women. But she was ignored.
Oh, man. Powerful stuff, as always, from Lawrence O'Donnell. A lot of great points I don't think I really saw made too many other places. All right, well, I have to do it. I got two clips from the piece of shit himself, and you want to fast forward a couple minutes to get past them, but I think it's only like 30 seconds a piece or so. First, here he is sitting down with the leader of Ukraine, and the only reason I play this is because he makes a joke. Zelensky makes a joke to Trump's stupid suggestion that he meet Vladimir Putin in Moscow, and I don't even think Trump got it. Trump didn't get it. When he said, I don't know if I'd want to go to Moscow because there's a lot of drones there. Trump, I think, thought he meant Russian drones. He was referring to his own. Anyway, here it is. It's worth listening just to hear Zelensky stab him in the rib.
Really great support. One of the things really great support. One of the things you talk about questions for Putin, but one of the things that I talked to him about was where would you want to meet? And he said, ideally in Moscow. I said, you're not going to meet in Moscow. It just doesn't work. You can't do that. But he'll meet, and Zelensky's going to meet, and something's going to happen that's going to be positive. And I hope it's going to happen soon, because they have to, number one, lives, but number two, building your country, because it's got a tremendous future, in my opinion. Yeah.
Where was it held, and when would that happen?
I don't know. President Putin said, I would love to meet in Moscow. And I said, I don't think, I have to put myself in his position. I don't know that he'd go to Moscow. Maybe he would. Would you go to Moscow?
It's difficult. There are a lot of Ukrainian drones there. That's right. It's dangerous.
He doesn't want to get hit by a drone.
Did you hear him? He said there's a lot of Ukrainian drones. And then Trump said he doesn't want to get hit by a drone. You're not even listening. He wasn't even listening. He's probably sleeping. He's so bad. And then here a reporter, he screamed at him to ask if the agreement to have an agreement was dead with Iran.
Is the ceasefire over? Is the ceasefire done? Is the MOU dead?
It's a very interesting question. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. I'll speak to our negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. We make a deal. And if I make a deal with him, we have a deal. And he goes out, he talks. We make a deal. Everyone's agreed. No nuclear weapon. We make a deal. They go outside, talk to the press. They say, we never even talked about it. There's something wrong with them. They're cuckoo. As far as I'm concerned, it's over.
Oh, wow. They're cuckoo. They're crazy. It's them. I mean, no one's giving them any credit or respect, the leaders of Iran, the Ayatollahs, the mullahs, but he's also projecting because he's pretty kooky, ain't he? Well, also at NATO, they had Mark Rutte, who is the head of NATO, right? And he was asked by a Danish reporter if he lost any respect for himself over having to sit next to Trump and listen to him talk about Greenland and all that shit. And Mark Rutte, or however the way you pronounce his name, he's a Dutch politician, and he's the Secretary General of NATO. He just doesn't even seem to be fazed by the question about self-respect. He just plays the game right through it.
Danish news agency Ritzau. Mark, you sit next to Donald Trump in moments where he talks about conquering Greenland, talks about lashing out at allies like Spain, starting trade wars, things that it doesn't seem like the old Mark Rutte would approve of. Does this have any effect on your self-respect when you sit next to him like that and say nothing?
You know, what I always do is acknowledge when praise is due, and I think we should praise Donald Trump for the fact that NATO is so much stronger. Of course, it has to do with the Russian threat, it has to do with the war in Ukraine, but it very much also has to do with President Trump delivering now what since Eisenhower the United States try to achieve equalizing spending between the US and Europe. And it makes Europe stronger. It makes Europe more relevant for the United States as a partner. So that is the transformative character of this summit, of what happened in The Hague, the implementation since The Hague, this summit as a point in time where we take stock. And I think that is extremely important. And when it comes to Greenland, I already explained. We had a meeting in Davos. And I said, I agree with you when it comes to Russia, when it comes to China, gaining access to the High North. But let's do this together. We have NATO for this. Let's work together on this. This is exactly what we are doing.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't even begin to understand the game that he's playing. Let's move on, shall we? Through the clip show, got up on. Let's get to a clip from Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, talking about the consequences of the bad, beautiful bill.
When Republicans passed the big, beautiful bill, we knew the primary impact was going to be that millions of people are going to lose their health insurance. And that is true. 20 million Americans will lose their health insurance because of that bill. But what we also knew is that a lot of hospitals, a lot of clinics were going to close their doors because when you suck $1 trillion out of the healthcare system in order to fund tax cuts for the wealthy, doctors, nurses can't keep doors open. Clinics close, maternity wards close, nursing homes close. Right now, we know that there are 1,000 hospitals, clinics, nursing homes that have either closed or are at risk of closing very soon. That is a really grim milestone. 1,000 hospitals, health centers, hospital wards, nursing homes are either shut down or are on the verge of shutting down because of the big, beautiful bill that prioritizes tax cuts for the wealthy over health care for regular people. Already, 370 healthcare clinics that mainly serve the poor and middle class have closed all across the country. There have been 70 hospital wards that have closed all across the country. Many of these are maternity wards. There are parts of the country now where you have to drive over an hour to get maternity care or to deliver your baby. This is a quiet, rolling catastrophe. More and more people, especially poor people, especially people who live in rural areas, cannot find care. So the big, beautiful bill is terrible for people who have insurance and lose it, but it's also terrible for people who have insurance and keep it, because increasingly, as these facilities are closing, even if you have insurance, you can't find it. And again, why? Why did Republicans do this? Why did Republicans choose to put us in a situation where 1,000 healthcare institutions have closed or are at risk of closing in order to finance new giant tax cuts for corporations, millionaires, and billionaires? From start to finish, this is a moral abomination, and you are seeing it not just in the number of people who are losing their health care, but the number of healthcare institutions, hospitals, nursing homes, clinics that are closing every single day across this country.
All right. Wow. Powerful stuff there, especially with the piano, huh? All right. Heather Cox Richardson, the very famous, influential historian from Maine, lives in Maine, has been a name a lot of folks mentioned as a possible Senate candidate. Well, she shot it down on her channel yesterday to her subscribers, for which I am one. I like Heather Cox Richardson. What I don't like is how many times she says A game in this clip, but I get it.
People wanted me to talk about. I didn't ask for questions today because my phone shows what people wanted me to talk about today, and that is, of course, the Maine Senate race, where people are talking about me being a candidate in that race. And I wanted you people to hear first that that is not going to happen. That's not an option. I am not a good candidate for the Senate race in Maine. Running for elected office is not my skill set. Or rather, running, I think I could probably do, but actually doing the job is a different thing. And that's not a skill set I have. If I had ever wanted to develop the talents of, going through long reports and sitting on committees and figuring out different constituencies and splitting babies and, for the one side or the other in the Solomon sense, I would have done it by now. And I don't want that. What I do have is another set of skills that are unique, really. And I'm using them every day in what I hope is a way that is protecting American democracy in a way I really can contribute, versus running for a Senate seat, for people who would be electing me, knowing that I don't really know how to do the job. So I would not be a good candidate for that, position. And I wanted to point that out because one of the things I'm always emphasizing to people is to know your lane, to bring your A game. And I promise you, I bring my A game every day here. And when I write at night and when we do the videos and all that, I really do bring my A game. I never show up on a stage. If anybody's seen me behind a stage before I go on, you will see that I do sort of exercises and stuff to bring energy to the stage. I've always said the day you're not nervous about what you do is the day you should quit, because you need to bring your A game all the time. And I would urge everybody to bring their A game. I can't bring an A game to a Senate race. I just don't have those skills.
Okay, so she's not running. There you go. Heather Cox Richardson is not in the running. So leave her alone. Let her do her thing. Who is running? Who's going to be the nominee? Okay, well, finally, I thought this clip, a few of you sent this to me. This is our good friend Wajahat Ali with his good friend Mehdi Hassan on their Zateo channel, making fun of white supremacists, and I think white people in general, for not washing their ass. It's a very funny clip. I loved listening, watching it, and I hope you will too.
Patriot Front, right? They say the master question to all the white supremacists, the KKK, the Patriot Front, right? They say the master race. Yeah. I'm an English major.
And they say you're dirty Indian.
Yeah. So I say I'm a dirty Indian, even though I'm Pakistani American. But okay, we're all dirty. We're all filthy, right? I'm an English major. Maybe you might be the master race. My one question, do you wash your ass?
Yeah.
And the answer is no.
No.
If you don't wash your ass.
But we're dirty.
No, but you cannot be the master race. You have to come back to me with a clean ass and then I'll entertain your argument.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
I mean, there's a pure logic to it. I don't get it. I mean, I saw it explained on Twitter once. This guy on Twitter just explained it. He just said, he's a white guy. He goes, how can we not use bidets? He's like, if you had shit on your arm, would you wipe it off with a piece of paper?
Repeatedly.
Would you just wipe it with a tissue paper? If you had some shit on your arm, would you wipe it with a piece of toilet paper?
Until it bleeds.
You would wash it. Okay, that's too much information. But until you would wash it.
That's right.
But why, when it comes to your ass, do you not wash it?
Bro, I don't understand. I've tried to bring this up in other...
I know you have. I've seen you on live TV and they talk about lotas.
They always cut it out. They're like, this is a little too much.
Anyway.
By the way,
the lota, just for people watching who don't know, what is a lota? Because that's not a hand bidet shower that you get on Amazon that you can get and you spray, which I have.
We're going to be revealing a lot of secrets today. Yep. I hope the South Asians and East Asians and Filipinos don't mind. When you go to a South Asian or Southeast Asian or Filipino's home, you will see a flowering vase in the toilet. And you'll see no flower. You'll see no nice little shrubbery. And you'll be wondering to yourself, why is there a flowering vase without a flower? And that's because
a green watering can.
Sometimes there's a Zateo cup. Sometimes there's a Starbucks cup.
Can't take that mug home now. I was going to give it to you, but not now. You've ruined it.
There's water in it. And what we do is we use the water along with the toilet paper to wash and cleanse our ass. So all this, when I was growing up in America, talking about like when you're a bit different, Pakistani, my friends, in all seriousness, up until college, I had no idea what streaky underwear meant. They're like, oh, streaky underwear. And I don't want to. And everyone used to like joke, right? Streaky underwear. I'm like, ha, ha, ha.
I don't want to.
And then I found out what streaky underwear was. Stop. But all I'm saying is, when you wash your ass with the lota, you don't have these problems. America, wash your ass.
When I went to college, I went to university and I was in a dorm building and there was a shared bathroom at the bottom. And I used to go downstairs. My roommate, I had a Muslim roommate. We'd both go down carrying a green watering can.
What you say?
Just go down and people would say, where are you going? And I would just say it, but he was very conscious and he would say, water the flowers. What? Just say what it's for.
He would walk around with a plant.
No, just a green can. Because we had to take it down. And I tried to leave it there because it was a communal bath that they would move it. So you had to take it up and down.
So you were in Oxford with a big ass jug of Lota
going down
Pani.
3 floors of an apartment building.
And what did they say?
A shared bathroom.
When they found out that you were using it to wash your ass?
They made any comments to my face. I think behind my back, they wondered why. But as you said, the last laugh's with us, Master Race.
Very funny. Well done, boys. I liked it a lot. Okay, well, now it's time to get to my guest joining me today. I really loved this conversation. You might have seen her talking with Waj not too long ago, I think. And she comes highly recommended from our friend David Daly. She's the executive director of this great organization in Michigan, Voters Not Politicians, the group that defeated the gerrymander in Michigan a few years ago. They're now running another statewide ballot initiative this year on campaign finance that might be the best approach out there, according to our friend David Daly. It goes after dark money, corporate money, utilities, and all the phony issue ads that they have hidden behind since Citizens United. And everybody knows how corrupt this administration is, how big of an issue that it can be, and you've really got to do the work to take it on. And so this is an organization and a woman that is doing just that. She is real smart, and she can speak to the entire mess about the statewide initiative, but it's got national implications, which is why I want to talk about it in terms of what it means for Citizens United. And so if you want to believe there are pathways forward, this is helpful and inspiring, and so is Christy McGillivray, who I'm very excited to welcome for the first time. Go support their organization, votersnotpoliticians.com. Let's do it. Very excited to have a big deal guest joining me, a very inspiring leader who is running a very important organization. We're going to talk all about Voters Not Politicians. And welcome to Stand Up for the first time, Christy McGillivray. I am very excited to connect with you. Been really inspired by your work with the current organization, Voters Not Politicians. We're going to talk all about that and the things you guys are working on in Michigan. But, oh my God, we just got to get to know you. You've had a really interesting life and career. Born in Alabama, free-range kid. But, I mean, you've spent your, 25 years, your career working in, I guess I want to call it progressive organizations, but environmental issues at the Sierra Club. You worked at American Federation of Teachers, so public ed. I can't believe we've never connected before, but so excited, and welcome and thank you.
Thanks, Pete. I am thrilled to be here.
So let me just ask you a little bit about you and your life before we get to the issues and organization. Tell me about you grew up but who grows up in Alabama?
Everyone from Alabama. Actually, my parents are musicians, and they played for the Alabama Symphony. So I was born and raised in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, and it was gorgeous and idyllic, and I love it. And the Deep South is a fantastic place for, a kid to grow up.
What do you want to say about the current politics down there? Do you still pay attention to it, my friend?
Yeah, I do. I think that what's happening in the South right now is a demonstration of the, long shadow of slavery that's tainted our politics, since this country was founded. Minority oppression and rule has been the norm in the South for a very, we're getting back to our roots, so to speak. So I think the important thing to remember is that, politics is not monolithic. And there are many amazing leaders and activists and citizens in the Deep South that are doing phenomenal work. And folks should not be afraid of organizing in the South. They shouldn't be afraid of speaking their mind in the South. They shouldn't shy away from it. The South is where our most important fights for democracy have always happened. So we are back in another place where it's time for everyone to pay attention to the South again, because helping voters actually have their voices heard in the South is how we are going to heal this entire country. So it's messy and it is possible. And I think that folks should be aware of their assumptions about the South and not judge too harshly. There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on there.
Well, that's the problem. That's why I said who's from Alabama, because I'm an East Coast elitist, and I, like other people, want to just write off the South. I know that that's wrong, and I know that what you just said is all true and very important. I know that my friend Amanda Nelson has started this organization called Y'all Vote, which is really interesting to get people-powered movement down there. And tell me why we shouldn't just write it off. You kind of already did, but tell me why this liberal elitist opinion of mine is so wrong-headed and unhelpful.
Because I think everyone has the capacity to change and see the best in their fellow citizens. They really do. And, so I live in Michigan now, right? Voters Not Politicians is a Michigan-based organization. And one of the things that I found the most shocking about moving from Alabama to Michigan was the assumption that people in the North are not racist, and it is just the Southerners that are racist. And that's not true.
Have you been to Boston yet?
Yeah, that is not true. So I think, the political structures in the South are violently oppressive, and they're rearing their ugly heads again. And that same level of violent oppression has existed up in the North too. And I'll give an example, the Klan, right? Everyone associates the Klan with the South, as they should, right? That's where it was founded. However, the Klan was incredibly active in Michigan, especially in the 1920s. And there was a candidate for mayor in Detroit that won, and they burned a cross in front of City Hall in Detroit in the 1920s. So I think it is a huge mistake to assume that the spread of Jim Crow and racist politics is confined to the South. It's not. And in order to heal our politics and get back to actually acknowledging every American as a full citizen that has the right to, resources and political power and everything that democracy entails, making sure that is extended to every person in this country is a fight that has to include the South. And in a lot of ways, the fight to make this country live up to its values has always started in the South. The civil rights movement started in the South because that's where the oppression was the most brutal. So we have to do it again. We can't write it off. And I truly believe that people can change. I really do. And I think that because I've seen it. I've seen it as an educator. I've seen it as an organizer. And I'm seeing it right now with some of the current campaigns I'm working on. We have to have scary conversations with people that we think disagree with us to get back to our shared humanity. And we can. And growing up in the South showed that to me.
I fully agree with you, and I love your optimism. But let me push back, which is I used to agree a lot more with that. And sometimes now I hear a lot of people say this, and I almost tend to agree with, like, some people do just need to be written off. You can't convince everybody. And part of what I think has changed about my thinking is that we're so siloed and brainwashed by our favorite media sources and now by the algorithm. So whatever you watch and whatever feed, a lot of the same stuff, whether you're liberal or conservative, whatever you are on the political spectrum, or you're apolitical and just being fed Taylor and Tyler, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even know their names.
Distracted. The attention economy, right? We're going to distract you so you stop paying attention to the corruption.
Sure. Yeah. But a lot of people are just not interested. They're just apathetic. And so they just get fed whatever. When it comes to, let's say, a typical like MAGA person who's just being fed that all the time, they have a barbecue with me. I listen to them. They listen to me. Maybe I change their mind a little bit. And then they go back to that source. And the next day they buy into the next conspiracy or narrative. It seems harder now than ever because you're constantly getting fed. Your brain is being fed with all kinds of, in their case, I would say, call it garbage. What do you think of how things have changed in terms of the way that we communicate, the way that we actually locate ourselves and don't even segregate with others who are different minded, much less different culturally?
Segregate. I do love that word. It's really haunted, right? Yeah, no, that's the media silos and the ideological segregation is a huge hill to climb.
Yeah.
Right? And, we went through most of our history assuming that people with more melanin in their skin were a different species. Right. And, we've gone through significant portions of, human history, assuming that women's brains don't work. Right. So we've had really hard hills to climb, and we still do. And I think that organizing is different than converting. Yes. Right. So it is true. You're not going to convert everyone. You're just not. Right. And there's some people that you need to write off. And when I learned how to organize canvassing in Macomb County, Michigan, which is the home of the Reagan Democrat, right? Obama also won it twice, side note. So I remember I had this one conversation where a really conservative guy said, "I love talking to you. You tell it straight like Rush Limbaugh." And I was like, that's interesting. I disagree with everything Rush Limbaugh says. And he's like, yeah, but you tell it straight. Right. So I think that, he cared about the thing that I was knocking on his door to talk to him about. Right. And I would have a knockdown, drag out fight with him about, everything else under the sun, I'm sure, right? But that thing that I was knocking on his door to talk to him about, he agreed with me on, right? I don't need him to agree with me on feminism. At that moment in that time, I needed him
common
to agree
ground,
with me.
Finding the common ground. But it's interesting. Right. I think what's really key to what we're talking about, and I don't want to make a mistake here, is there's a difference between like me talking to my uncle at a wedding and you talking about organizing. Organizing is something different entirely. And when organizing, what the goal should be is to find common ground. And right now it might be a data center with your MAGA neighbor or something, or any number of issues. And that's different. And we're not talking about like, why do I need to convince somebody at a wedding? But organizing and convincing and finding common ground, that's where the work should be centered, focused, prioritized, and resourced. That's where you're going to actually have the most impact. So I think we're almost talking about two things differently, not trying to argue with somebody on Facebook that I might tangentially know from college, but actually canvassing, organizing, working with maybe an established organization, starting your own, and finding common ground. How am I hearing you right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. And I think that the disinformation and the really, I mean, there's no other way that I have to use this word. It is cult-like, right? I think that the town square of social media is anything but a town square because it actively incentivizes the worst possible aspects of human behavior. That's not a town square. That's like a, Russian PSYOP situation. So I think organizing is, best done face to face in person. I was always deeply skeptical of using social media to organize. It's interesting. I started really organizing in 2004 and social media wasn't really a thing yet. It wasn't being used in the same way. Right. And so I've seen such a massive difference between organizers that learned how to do this before social media and then younger organizers that came up with social media as like the mediating force. And the results, I think, are really, I think young folks, need to unlearn a lot of assumptions that social media kind of incentivizes, right? And we can, right? We can. And I think that a way that it also incentivizes like despair and disconnection is it's hard to feel like that's not intentional because when you have face-to-face conversations with other human beings, really amazing things happen. Like I'll give you an example. So I'm working on this Money in Politics ballot initiative right now. And the Republican nominating convention for the Michigan Republican Party happened to be on the same day as the third No Kings rally. And I went to the Republican nominating convention. I said, and I don't hide my politics, I said and did the exact same thing, collecting signatures and talking to voters going into the Republican nominating convention that I did at the No Kings rally. Same thing. Didn't hide who I was, said exactly who I was. I had the same response. I had people in both places signing, obviously like signing the petition and then getting their own petitions to circulate. Same like excited response. Everyone hates this stuff. And it was because if they had gotten, an email from me or like saw something online, it wouldn't have happened as seamlessly.
Right.
But you automatically start building a certain kind of trust because you showed up to someone's thing and you had a conversation with them on terms that they respect.
Yes.
And it goes such a long way. It goes such a long way.
But it doesn't seem efficient.
No, it's not. No, it takes a massive amount of time. It takes a massive amount, and it's a lifetime. Yeah. And you have to be rooted in the place where you're doing it, right? That's the other thing too. It's not like you have a conversation and then you're done. It's you connected with another human being and you are going to follow up with them and ask how they are doing in the future, right? And like continue to support them. It is not efficient because the act of politics and organizing is not about achieving a goal. It's about spending your entire lifetime balancing power to make sure that those that accumulate too much of it don't abuse it. That's not a campaign that's over and done with. That's a calling.
Oh man.
No, it's not efficient at all. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be efficient.
I love the way you're talking, the things you're saying, how you're saying them, and the wisdom with which you're saying them. And it makes me like, I knew you were smart and really good at talking about this stuff and very experienced, but it does make me want to ask you a couple questions I wasn't planning on. I just got to get your take on the kind of issue of the day, which is this Graham Plattner situation. My question isn't about Plattner. My question is about standards and clear lines. And I don't love binaries. I like to have more nuance and kind of granularity in conversation, but it does feel to me like there is kind of a feminist and anti-feminist binary in America. And I don't want to say like the Democratic Party standard versus the Republican Party standard, but there is a completely different standard for the type of person, let's just say type of man, who can run for office. And on the right, you've got Donald Trump and so many other horrible men he's surrounded himself with, some of which were not elected. He just, appoints them to because birds of a feather, predators of a feather. But I mean, you've got Roy Moore and you got Herschel Walker and you got this Texas guy. It was Pollock is his name. And these are terrible guys and they've been nominated and supported by the top guy. Meanwhile, we get a sniff of something, the rest of us on Earth One, whether it's Eric Swalwell or Graham Plattner, and you're done. And I do think there is this kind of binary, this feminist or anti-feminist, I don't know how you might call it. And I just want to know your thoughts on how we should have those clear standards for public officials.
That's interesting. I think the backlash to Me Too was candidly like incredibly hard for me, like emotionally, because when Me Too kind of exploded, it was like, oh my God, are we finally telling the truth? Are we finally going to tell the truth about what actually happens? Are we going to actually acknowledge it? And then the like cultural response to like re-entrench the most rank forms of misogyny possible is like heartbreaking to me at a level that like I actually can't go in depth because I'm going to start crying on a live podcast. Like it's so fucking bad.
I get it as much as I can.
Sorry. Anyway. And I have a daughter and I remember when Roe was overturned, like we all knew it was coming, but I happened to hear her and her friend like giggling. And I was like, my emotional response to Roe being overturned, like I literally took a chainsaw to like bushes in my backyard to like deal with my level of rage. Right. So I'm saying all that because I think that it's not about a universal standard and applying it specifically when it comes to like feminism. I think it's about how we culturally cope with the truth. And the truth is the most powerful tool that we have as human beings to help bring each other together. And every time we start lying to each other and lying to ourselves about abuses of power, we allow those abuses to fester and grow and wreak even more havoc, right? So I think that I almost like, I can't bring myself to particularly care about individual behavior and proclaim what the consequences should be for any individual behavior. What I do care about is fighting tooth and nail for a cultural reckoning that requires people to acknowledge and tell the truth. And I think that when we force people to acknowledge and tell the truth, good things happen. They do, right? And what I hope most for in like all the various different like revelations is that the truth of what actually happened is something that everyone agrees on and is held to account for based on like a shared understanding of it. And it's hard in politics, right? Because the truth gets slippery in politics. And so the thing that I'm watching the most there is, are we really going to tell the truth? Are we going to tell the truth? And I think that when we do, better things happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really thoughtful answer. And I guess we might again be talking about two slightly different things when we're talking about the truth, but I guess I've gotten a little bit more cynical. I'm still very optimistic and hopeful, But when you talk about the truth and having an agreed upon universal truth, that's why, use like phrases like Earth 1 and Earth 2.
Right.
Because you've got all kinds of conspiracy theories and so on. And we can talk about the most pernicious conspiracy theories, whether it be about vaccines or climate science or whatever, or the big lie.
The truth.
But to me, the hardest one, Christy, like when I hear you talk about, or anybody talking about the truth, me included, and the importance of it, I'm like, we all watched on television January 6th. We watched it.
I know. And they're lying about it again. It's so crazy.
It wasn't like you
crazy.
can't watch an election. You can watch the returns come in and you can question every single state if you wanted to be the most conspiracy. Fine. But the insurrection was just a riot. It was just a bunch, and the idea that anyone would watch that and then believe that those were crisis actors or FBI agents or anything but exactly who they were, doing exactly what they were told to do. That's where I get like, how can we watch? We're not talking about like something in the past or even the near future. It's like just a couple years ago, it was on TV. We all watched it, the build up to it, and yet we actually don't agree on maybe what happened because of the constant drumbeat of propaganda and conspiracy from the very top, and of a whole bunch of networks and channels and individuals supporting it. And I struggle with that. Like, how do we come to a universal truth if we can't watch the same event and say who won the game?
You're right. It's hard. And this is going to sound like a tangent, but I promise it's not. I mentioned the word cult-like. I actually am a little bit obsessed with cults and studying them for like a variety of reasons. It's like a little side project. Yeah. Didn't imagine going down this rabbit hole, but here we are. The reason because like sometimes I get really interested in something and I don't understand why I'm interested in it until later, right? So like my cult obsession started like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago. I actually went to this like state park in Florida that also like, it's a state park that was like a cult compound. And then it was like all kicked off and I was like, this is bananas, right? But American history is actually like incredibly culty. It's wild, right? Like the Puritans were like basically cultists, let's be honest. So I think that diving into that kind of like toxic group dynamic and how it convinces people to lie to themselves in order to belong to a group over everything else.
Yes.
Like that's what happens.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so like, I didn't realize that I was getting obsessed with cults because like America was in the process of spiraling into the worst possible iteration of cult dynamics. And I like all of a sudden it hit me and I was like, oh my God, that's why I'm getting really obsessed with this right now. Cause everyone's doing it. And like, it does happen to everyone, right? That's the other thing too. I think people think that, like it's only ignorant people that this happens to, or, whatever else, but that abuse of power where your inclusion in the group is so important that you will lie to yourself about material reality in front of your face is something that human beings are actually hardwired to do. Right. And that's what's happening again. People are lying to themselves about material reality that's in front of their face because their inclusion in the group they've decided to cleave to is overriding their ability to assess reality. And understanding, like, there's not an easy fix and it's not efficient. You're right. And understanding that that's something that everyone has the capacity to do and everyone has the capacity to wake up from, which is true. They do.
Yep.
That actually like helps me panic about it less and actually be like less cynical. Right. Because it's like, oh, human survival is actually predicated on belonging to a group. That's a thing. We're hardwired to do it. And that's what's happening here. And people are lying to themselves so they don't get excluded from the group. It helps me cope with it because it's depressing.
Yeah, but it does. It helps explain it. But to pivot towards voters, not politicians, and your work, which is what you came to talk here about. I mean, you can back to your earlier point, find common ground with a cultist and turn them out to the polls on election day, on a referendum, on an issue that they might be all the way to MAGA land, on the merry-go-round to RFK's rainbow to raccoon penises. But if they are concerned about some other issue that a whole bunch of their other neighbors might be, that's a great place to start. Tell me about your organization, and then we'll talk about how you might be doing that with some of the initiatives that you're working on, including these data centers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which apparently nobody wants.
Yeah. So I could talk about data centers just as long as I can talk about biosolids. But yes, Voters Not Politicians. So Voters Not Politicians was founded in 2018 by a group of citizens that took it upon themselves to use direct democracy, because we allow that in the state of Michigan, to run a ballot initiative to end gerrymandering. So everyone thought it wasn't possible to do. A hearty band of just everyday folks did it. They organized literally thousands of volunteers across the state to get an end to gerrymandering in Michigan on the ballot. They campaigned for it and they won. And because it just rocked Michigan's political world, right? Because, you know, the major parties and major interest groups were like, gerrymandering is too complicated. Nobody's going to understand it. We can't do this. Nobody cares, yada, yada. This is like obscure structural reform for democracy. Nobody cares about that right now. And Voters Not Politicians was like, no, people really care about it. We're going to do it. And they did. So after Voters Not Politicians won that, they kept going. And I am lucky enough to now head the organization. I came to Voters Not Politicians from environmental policy work at Sierra Club after the 2024 election, because my assessment is that it is completely pointless to work on policy when we are lighting the rule of law on fire.
Right. Yes. It's like
it's pointless.
It's ridiculous. It's such an important point.
Yeah.
I too have worked on several different issues over my career with all kinds of groups and interviewed policy experts from all. That's why I'm surprised we've never crossed paths. But I have also come to the conclusion that without a healthy democracy and doing something about campaign finance, I would argue, all of these other issues that we care so much about, climate, race, religion, gender, environment,
educate, all of it.
Say it again and say it differently about why this issue matters before everything else.
Democracy is the tool that we use to address every other thing you mentioned. Without a functioning democracy where you have proper checks and balances, where you are actually checking the accumulation of power, which is what money is. Money is another iteration of power. If you allow for it to accumulate too much, then you don't have a democracy. You can't have a democracy and have trillionaires. Anyway, so all other issues are secondary to that.
Yep.
Because if you have a functioning democracy, then you can collectively decide how to address all of those issues. And then most importantly, this is the one that I don't think we talk about enough. We have to enforce them. A lot of folks stop at the pass a law part, and they never actually dive into are we actually enforcing this law? And people think that I'm talking about cops or something. I'm not talking about municipal police officers. I'm talking about the fact that the Clean Water Act, for example, has never been enforced properly. Never. There is a massive facility, for example, in Wyandotte, Michigan, that has been in direct violation of 2 federal consent decrees. Those are judges' orders. They've been in violation of that for longer than I have been alive. Yeah. And we're not enforcing it. So American democracy has always been flawed, right? We've already talked about it. We started talking about the South. The goal of democracy, I think, is to keep trying, because it is in the act of trying that we achieve at least getting a little bit closer and making life a little bit better for more people. And I think that it's not when we restore our democracy, because we have to take a long, hard look at how we are actually enforcing the laws that we have all agreed are good and should be the law of the land.
That's
right?
really,
so I think it's that part's really critical.
Yeah.
And we're currently debating the fundamentals of the American Constitution in a way that I think renders every other issue secondary. If we do not have a functioning democracy, then everything else is irrelevant.
Very well said. Very well said. Talk to me about, quickly, direct democracy in Michigan. Why do what you have there in Michigan, why is what you have there better?
The ballot initiative process? Yeah. So I think part of the reason why the citizen-led ballot initiative process, which is a Herculean undertaking and it's not easy, the reason it's better is because gatekeepers, elected officials, party infrastructure, et cetera, interest groups, they don't always actually have their finger on the pulse. Right. And so having an option available for voters to exercise the collectively shared, prioritization of any given issue is really important, because people can get, like, to your point, we're more siloed than ever, right? That's true. And when there are direct democracy options, you have a way of getting around that. So Voters Not Politicians work to do that with gerrymandering. They work to do that. We expanded ballot access and voting options in 2022. And now we're working on money in politics. We're running a ballot initiative to get money out of politics, because corruption is a bipartisan problem, profoundly bipartisan. It's an issue. Obviously the Trump administration they're taking it to whole new levels, but it's still a bipartisan problem. And the two-party system in Michigan will not actually tackle campaign finance reform. They won't. They've had decades to do it. They're not touching it. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And so it is absolutely up to voters and citizens to take it into their own hands and use the tools that we have to say we need a nonpartisan, voter-led opposition to this bipartisan corruption. It is destroying our democracy, and it is up to us to save it. So that's what we're doing.
So just tell folks in Michigan what they should be looking for and voting for in November. And also, what do you want to say about the primary August 4th? Has your organization endorsed a Senate candidate? Everybody's watching that race.
We are wholly focused on the ballot initiative right now, because we have taken on the biggest corporate actors in Michigan. And we have some folks with literally bottomless pockets gunning for us. They could spend as much as $80 million to defeat our ballot initiative and lie about what's on the ballot. So we're wholly focused on that. Obviously the primary is getting very dicey. And we are, at Voters Not Politicians, we spend a lot more time prioritizing the actual infrastructure of democracy as opposed to partisan politics. We're officially nonpartisan. And what that means is that we're really focused on the Department of Justice observers that are going to be attending our primary. So, we're a little worried about that because, it's Trump's Department of Justice. And we're going to be working overtime to make sure that the money being spent against us to lie about what our ballot initiative does doesn't actually, stick. So that's what we're worried about. And those are both the sanctity and security of elections. That is actually something the vast majority of people agree about. It's just that we've decided to not agree on material reality, right? But everyone agrees we should have, free and fair elections, and everyone agrees money in politics is bad. And we're going to be working around the clock to protect those two things.
It's all great points. And I sometimes feel like people they've been led to not know what is happening and obviously vote against their own interests all the time. This ballot initiative sounds like a real mountain to climb and a very tough thing to get across the finish line and to make people aware of. And then once you get it on the ballot, you've got to inform them about it. And the money and interests spend, we've all seen these, and people might not even know it, who's behind them, spend millions of dollars coming up with clever advertisements and mailers telling you that the clearly stated ballot initiative, hard fought in its wording, is not at all what it says. And in fact, the moon is made of cheese. Do I have that right?
Yeah. So what our ballot initiative, it holds up to Citizens United, which is very exciting. It goes after state contractors that have contracts worth $250,000 or more with the state of Michigan, bans them from political giving because of the conflict of interest. That's held up to Citizens United before. It also goes after regulated utilities because of the same inherent conflict of interest. And that happens to take out the biggest spenders in Michigan, which are our electric utilities and healthcare companies. It also goes after big tech, which is very interesting. So what that means is that we are it's wildly popular voters. We're polling over 80% in a very politically divided state, right? And what our opposition is going to do is say that we are banning in-state money because we are out-of-state money is going to flood in. And what this is really going to do, it's a giveaway to all the California billionaires that want to run the state of Michigan. Right. That's what they're going to say, right? And what we're going to say and what we're going to fundraise around the clock to get out there is, we have to tackle all of the campaign finance problems we have. I agree. No billionaire anywhere ever should get away with buying elections. Strong agree. What we're doing is tackling what we can in Michigan in a way that holds up to the Supreme Court's decision on Citizens United. So let's start there and work with us to pick that bigger fight for out-of-state money too. Let's take that on next.
Very smart strategy.
That's what we'll do.
Clearly, a lot of smart people working on this strategy and trying to think of how to beat the moneyed interests and anticipate what they're going to do. All right, last thing, just talk about these data centers. I've only kind of scratched the surface. Why are they so unpopular amongst anybody? They're a very NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. So are the detention camps, prisons that they built as well. Both these things, like even MAGA conservatives don't want them apparently. But let's just talk about the data centers and how that's playing out in Michigan. Who wants them? Who's behind them? And how do you prevent them from being built? Because they're bad, right? They're bad for a lot of reasons.
So I got involved in the data center fight when I was still at Sierra Club in 2024, actually, because I remember seeing a newspaper article about a coal plant staying online that was supposed to shut down. And I was like, what? And it was for a data center. And I was like, oh no. So we had these tax breaks for data centers moving through the state legislature at the time. And I worked around the clock with colleagues to make sure that we got consumer protections so that ratepayers weren't actually footing the bill for like Silicon Valley billionaire infrastructure. And then, energy and water conservation, because they use a massive amount of energy and a massive amount of water. Folks are furious because the way that these things are like financially structured, the Silicon Valley billionaires are literally jacking up everyone else's utility rates to pay for their infrastructure that they're using to race with each other to see who can build like the nastiest version of AI the fastest. Like that's what's happening. And it's creating a giant economic bubble. The entire goal of, 8 people in this race with each other to see who can get to market with, what do they call it? AGI, the generative intelligence, right? Yeah. They're in a race with each other. And if, 7 of them lose, that is, there's going to be all the stranded assets, right? And so, they're building them in places like they're using like arable farmland that we use to grow like, food for humans instead of like siting them in other places. Like that's one of the biggest issues here in Michigan. They consume massive amounts of water that it's not returned to the water cycle. Even if they're using closed loop cooling, they actually treat that water and they are not clear with what they're treating it with. So it's not just like go back into the water cycle. And yeah, they are massive eyesores. I think actually though, aside from all of that, I think it's way bigger than NIMBY stuff because people are overwhelmingly terrified of what AI is. And I think that folks they would feel that way anyway, because it's such a huge political and economic, like watershed, right? But the fact that it's happening behind closed doors without any sort of real democratic oversight and governance, so that, billionaires can become trillionaires while the rest of us are, deal with the specter of automating everything, job loss, everything else while electric bills are going up. And, what are we building it for? Are we building it for a surveillance state? Are we building it so that you can have like non-consensual like pornography? Like it's just bananas. And these tech bros, the broligarchs, they're not hiding it. Peter Thiel said on camera, he didn't think, he was like debating about whether or not humanity should continue to exist. He said that.
Well,
he said that to Russ Douthat. So
he makes some good points, Christy.
They're crazy. So I think that the level of backlash to AI is really what the data center fight is about.
Interesting.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. Oh, such great points on that and everything. All right. VotersNotPoliticians.com. Christy, plugs right now going out. Obviously, if you're watching on Substack, subscribe to their Substack. But people can donate. What do you hope that people listening, watching can do to support your organization and especially those in Michigan?
Thank you. Yeah, go to VotersNotPoliticians.com. Check it out. We have all the different ways to support on our website. If folks want to know specifically more about the ballot initiative, we're doing that with a coalition of organizations. You can go to mopupmichigan.org. .org, not .com. And you can read the specificities of what we are doing there, and you can contribute to the coalition effort there as well. We are doing a lot of grassroots fundraising because, shockingly, turns out lots of people with lots of money aren't into getting money out of politics. So we need lots of small dollar contributions. So if folks can chip in to help us save democracy here in Michigan, please do.
Love it. Love all of it. Great talking to you. So smart. I hope I can just call you and have you back on and talk to you about all these issues some other time. And I know you're taking some time off, so I appreciate you spending some time with us today. Really smart. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Pete. And please tell Richard Louv that I'm a big fan.
Yes, I'm going to see Richard Louv. I'm very, very excited. I definitely will. Bye, Christy. Thank you so much. All right. All right. There she goes. Great, smart guest. Can't wait to talk to her again. I hope you liked it. Let her know that you heard her here. There's links to all of her and her work in the show notes, as there is every day. And tomorrow I will be back with Liz Winstead. No news tomorrow. Don't look for a news update from me tomorrow because I'm taking off, and a couple days next week as well. But you'll love my conversation with Liz Winstead. Also, you can watch my conversation with Tim Wise, which I'll post in the pod on Monday. Thank you so much for your support and for your friendship and your trust and your gifts and your love and respect and all of the rest. You guys are the best, especially you bumblebees here at the end. All right, John Carroll taking us out. JohnCarroll.org. See him live.
When the tyrants taunt you in the sirens' teeth, you better stand up. Stand up. Let the brave meet the challenge. Let the weak flee. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. When you're tired of begging, saying pretty please, that's the time you gotta finally get up off of your knees. When you can't see the forest for the burning trees, you got to stand up. Hey, you've been sitting so long, you got the creaky knees, you got to stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. We got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand